I'm Brittany. This is Moran. And welcome to Gaywatch, where we watch and read gay things. Today, we finish Volume 6 of Erha. I feel great about it, as you could probably tell. So sorry for starting a couple of minutes late today. There is video evidence of me spilling most of the contents of Moran all over my desk. And fortunately, it went very well in that nothing was harmed. The book is fine. Everything's fine. I think like one piece of paper bit the dust and like that's it. The keyboard's fine. The mouse is fine. We're all fine. But I did indeed have to run off between the book chat stream and this one to, you know, actually properly clean off my desk. So here we are. We read for a couple of hours. We typically read about 40 to 50 pages. I'm actually not sure the precise number of pages we have left in this. Oh, I think we have like 45 or something. So it'll be a nice normal reading stream day, guys. Why are you nervous? Everything's fine. I don't even know what's going on and everything's fine. We are on page 323 for chapter 207, which is called Shizun, There's Something I Want to Tell You. There are trigger warnings down in the description box for the series as a whole. And there's also an evergreen invitation to the public Gaywatch Discord, which is all about the books and what we read here. So if you want to go hop onto that and have a chat, feel absolutely free. And there's really kind of nothing else to do except start reading. So I guess I'll do that now. Okay. I mean, actually, technically, there's the very predictable announcement of we're just hopping right into Volume 7 next week. There is no break in between Volume 6 and 7. So, kind of like I said in the book chat from a little bit ago, no matter what the cliffhanger aspect is, we are diving in just next week. We're not put on pause for the next month. Okay? Okay. Mo-Run pushed the door ajar. Through the crack, he saw Shui-Meng bathed in the last glow of the setting sun, along with Shimei, clad in robes of green. We've got some medicinal salve for you, Shui-Meng trailed off. What are you doing? Open the door and let us in. Mo-Run hesitated, then let the door swing open so Shui-Meng and Shimei could enter the room. Shui-Meng paced over to the window and craned his neck out to gaze at the sunset over the lake. Your room has such a nice view. There are a whole bunch of camphor trees right outside mine, so I can't see a thing. We can switch if you like, Mo-Run offered absent-mindedly. No, I've already unpacked all my stuff. I was just saying. Shui-Meng waved a hand, walking back to the table. Let Shimei put some salve on that wound you got from the vines. You don't want your shoulder to get infected. Mo-Run fixed his dark brown eyes on Shui-Meng. If Shui-Meng knew the things he'd done in the past life, if he knew what kind of soul was hiding within his cousin's shell, would he still grin at him and bring him medicine like this? His focused gaze... It's fine. I'm fine. I'm already overwhelmed. His focused gaze unsettled Shui-Meng. I can read. I can do this. One more time. His focused gaze unsettled Shui-Meng. Worth the wait. What's wrong? Is there something on my face? Mo-Run, hi, This art is rude for a couple of different reasons. Hang on, we'll get there. Mo-Run shook his head and sat at the table, lowering his lashes. Shimei stepped up beside him. Can you pull your robes aside so I can take a look at the wound? Preoccupied, Mo-Run reached up to loosen his collar. Thanks a lot. Oh, You. Shimei shook his head and sighed. When will you learn to be careful? You've picked up all Shizun's bad habits, always running headfirst into danger and coming out covered in injuries. My heart hurts for you. His hands moved as he spoke. Taking his supplies from the medicine chest, he carefully cleaned Mo-run's wound, applied the salve, and bandaged his shoulder. Don't get it wet or move around too much for the next few days. Those vines were poisonous, so the wound may give you some trouble. Also, give me your hand. I'll check your pulse. Mo-run extended his arm for Shimei. Shimei pressed slender fingers, pale as the whitest jade, to the pulse at Mo-run's wrist. Worry flitted across his gaze. It was gone in a flash, but Mo-run caught it. What's wrong? Blinking, Shimei came back to himself. It's nothing. Is the poison serious? Shimei shook his head. He smiled wanly at Mo-run. Just a little. Remember to rest. Otherwise, there might be side effects. He lowered his head and busied himself collecting everything back into the medicine chest. I'll be heading out now. I have some more medicines to organize. See you two later. He closed the door and was gone. This is the art. Like, thank you so much for Half Naked Mo-run, but also it's this art is as insidious as we think Shimei is. Like, thank you, it's beautiful, but also, why are we dialing in on this moment, huh? Staring after him, Shuemeng frowned. Is it just me, or has he been in a weird mood lately? He's acting off, like something's on his mind. If Shuemeng can even notice this, not that, you know me, we love Shuemeng, but if Shuemeng is picking up on this, it's not looking good for me, guys. Mo-run wasn't in the best mood himself. Maybe he took my pulse and discovered I'm on death's door, so he's feeling sorry for me. Don't say stuff like that, Shuemeng glared at him. Are you trying to jinx yourself? I'm being serious. Shimei's been pretty down these past few days. Finally, Mo-run's concern was piqued. Really? He asked, hands stilling. Really? Shuemeng insisted. I'm telling you, he's always spacing out. I have to say his name 2 or 3 times before he responds. Do you think it could be... Be what? Do you think he likes someone? No! No! I don't think he likes someone. I proposed a crazy theory last time. About... Yeah. About him being controlled in some way. I swear to God, man, if he's just been puppeted this whole time by the actual big bad, and I owe this character the biggest apology that I've owed any fucking character, I might jump out the window. The window isn't as accessible to me as it used to be in the old setup, because now the window is kind of like over here at an angle rather than just right next to me for me to hop out of and into my own front yard. But I'll do it. I'll do it. Where even was I? Mo-run stared at Shuemeng. Shimei liking someone. Had Shuemeng said this to him 8 years ago, Mo-run would have probably jumped to his feet and started cursing in a fit of jealousy. Now, he merely felt somewhat taken aback. He sifted through his memories for clues, only to find he hadn't paid much attention to Shimei at all these past few years. Oh, I don't have a feeling that's going to be to his detriment. He was coming up blank. Don't ask me. At any rate, the person he likes wouldn't be me, said Mo-run. He pulled his robes back over his shoulder and put them in order. Besides, why are you always so worried about other people's feelings? Shuemeng flushed and cleared his throat. I'm not. I was just making conversation. As he glowered at Mo-run, pulling clothes over his stupidly perfect physique. Something niggled at him. His roving gaze landed on Mo-Run's sculpted chest and stopped. What are you staring at? Mo-Run quipped, though he didn't much mind. Like what you see. Mo-Run, now is not the time. Although I'm screaming, now is not the time. You think you're funny? Shui Meng didn't respond. In that same insufferable tone, Mo-Run added, keep your eyes to yourself. I'm afraid our love could never be. Again, why does he think he's funny? Shui Meng paled and turned his face aside. You wish, he snapped, feigning calm. But his heart was pounding like a drum. For around Mo-Run's neck, he had seen a scarlet crystal pendant hanging right next to his heart. It looked so familiar, as though he'd seen an identical pendant once before. For some reason, although he couldn't put his finger on where or when, gooseflesh rose all over his body and a low drone filled his ears. Where had he seen that pendant? He's this close. Mo-Run smoothed his lapels. He looked down and spotted a few droplets of medicine on the table. Do you have a handkerchief? Huh? Shui Meng blinked. Oh, yeah. He rummaged through his pockets and proffered a handkerchief to Mo-Run. You never remember to carry your own. I'm not in the habit. Yet you were still insisting Shizun would make you one, Shui Meng said stiffly. What a dumb flex. Only then did Mo-Run remember. He had begged Chu Wanning for a high-tongue handkerchief like his own. Whether Chu Wanning had forgotten about it or simply couldn't be bothered, Mo-Run was still waiting. Somewhat embarrassed, he cleared his throat. Shizun's been busy lately. He hasn't had time. I mean, he's been busy doing some... You know what? Even if he did have the time, he wouldn't make one just for you, Shui Meng scoffed. I'd definitely get one too. And even that Nangongsa would probably get one. He's all like, you're not special. He'd make everyone a handkerchief. There's no gay love affair to be had here. You're just a disciple. This poor man. At the mention of Nangongsa, Mo-Run's grim mood grew more dismal still. Have you gone to see him? No, why would I? Said Shui Meng. He and Yuang Shi are staying next to that old coot, Jing Shi. I'd rather stay 1,000,000 miles away from him. Mo-Run nodded. That's good then. Jing Shi's got a bad temper and plenty of other issues, but at least he's a reasonable person. He won't make trouble for them. Him? Shui Meng's voice rose with annoyance. If that stupid bastard could be called reasonable, I'd take his surname. Don't call me Shui Meng. It's Jiang Meng from now on. Ha! Mo-Run didn't know what to say. Shui Meng had always had a gift for insulting people in every way imaginable when anger got the better of him. But with him here chattering away, Mo-Run felt some of the warmth of the living had returned to his room. Those nightmares from his past life finally began to recede. I'm genuinely emotional from that. I'm gonna cry. Oh my god. Because it's never just... Okay, listen. When it comes to redemption, it's never just about the romantic love that helps you along the way, that helps you see things differently. It's never just that. Even in a story where the focal point is romance, it's never just that. And for something that is going so hard, for lack of a better word, on the redemption angle and really taking the time to explore that, the fact that we have this with Shui Meng is so deeply needed, just in the way that it's been happening. That's all it takes to add a much needed dimension to a real psychology being examined about redemption, even though it's obviously surrounded with the trappings of fantasy. So gets me right here seeing stuff like that. Speaking of, Shui Meng continued, you don't think Shizun's really going to take Nangongsa on as a disciple, do you? In those days, he certainly wouldn't have, Mo-Run replied. But these days, neither of us can stop him. Shui-Meng stared. Why not? Mo-Run let out a sigh. Let me ask you a question. Li Wuxian was always respectful to Nengongsa. Even though he was his elder, he never dared to contradict the young master of Rufeng sect. Why is that? Because Nengongsa's dad was powerful, the leader of the cultivation realm's #1 sect, obviously. Okay, let me ask you another question. These days, people like Huang Xiaoyue and others not even worth mentioning don't hesitate to make Nengongsa's life difficult. Why? Because of their grudges against him? Mo-Run found himself momentarily speechless. Only Shui-Meng could come up with this kind of answer, he thought. All of a sudden, he felt a prick of envy. Shui-Meng was already in his 20s, yet his mind was childishly pure sometimes. There was always some nuance in describing someone as childish. Childish could mean innocent, simple, and straightforward, but it also implied that someone hadn't grown up, that they were still immature and unrefined. As far as Mo-Run was concerned, it was nothing short of a miracle for someone to have lived 2 decades, yet still look upon the mortal realm with pure eyes. Gazing at the miracle before him, Mo-Run laughed bitterly. Why would they have that many grudges against him? No, but see, this is why Shui-Meng is such an important part of Mo-Run's redemption arc. He needs to see that directly in front of him. He desperately needs that. Rufeng sect exposed so many of the upper cultivation realm scandals. But that was Xu Shuanglin's doing. What does it have to do with Nengongsa? Asked Mo-Run. Wasn't Nengongsa the person hurt most deeply by the first secrets he revealed? He learned his father killed his mother with his own 2 hands. Nengongsa is the farthest thing from a perpetrator. He's a sacrificial lamb. A victim. Shui-Meng opened his mouth, and Mo-Run waited in silence for him to speak. But nothing emerged from Shui-Meng's parted lips. After a while, he indignantly pressed them together once more. He didn't know how to refute it. After a long beat, he said reluctantly, Then why do you think that is? 2 reasons. For the fun of it, first of all, Mo-Run said. Those people couldn't be more thrilled at Rufeng sect's demise. It's vastly more satisfying to bully a disgraced Gongja than a random beggar. Shui-Meng had suffered the same fate in his previous lifetime. When the son of the Phoenix had hit rock bottom, he had encountered every kind of prejudice. The present Shui-Meng was none the wiser, but Mo-Run knew this well. Afraid of falling afoul of Emperor Taishan-Jun, not a single sect had been willing to take Shui-Meng in or cooperate with him. In the first year of Mo-Run's reign, Shui-Meng had run to the ends of the earth, entreating the leaders of sects large and small to join forces with him and bring an end to Mo-Run's tyrannical rule before he did anything more monstrous. Shui-Meng had walked the lands for 9 years, but no one had listened to him. In the end, only Kunlun Tashui Palace was willing to shelter him, and only Mei Hanshui was willing to wholeheartedly aid his cause. Mo-Run was glad that this lifetime's Shui-Meng would never have to endure such indignities. Why would you say that? Why would you tempt the wrath of whatever from high atop the thing? That's a reference to The West Wing, said by the character named Toby. He's just talking about tempting fate, but it's an iconic, you should look it up. It's an iconic little moment. He's anxious about voting result. Anyway, why would you do that? Why would you tempt the wrath of whatever from high atop the thing? What about the second reason? Shui-Meng asked, wholly oblivious to Mo-Run's thoughts. The second reason is they think they're upholding justice. What does that mean? Tianyun Pavilion is ruled by the descendants of the gods. Do you know what they do with criminals from the cultivation realm? After the execution, they string up the condemned for 3 days and 3 nights to publicize their crimes, Shui-Meng muttered. Why are you asking me? It's not like you haven't witnessed it. Don't you remember? When you first came to Xisheng Peak, there was a criminal about to be put to death. Dad had to go there for the trial anyway, so he took us both with him. You even watched the execution. though you were a real scaredy cat back then. You came down with a fever 4 or 5 days afterward. Mo-Run laughed. After a moment, he said, couldn't help it. That was the first time I'd ever seen someone get their spiritual core dug out. What were you so scared of? It's not like someone's gonna come and dig out your spiritual core. Ha ha ha! Ha ha! Ha ha ha! Maybe we don't float certain possibilities, Shuimeng. Maybe we don't do that. Oh. Hard to say, Mo-Run replied. Hard to say. Hard to say. Hard to say. Hard to say. Oh, God. Hard to say. I think I swear to God, if that becomes the new, it's not like he was dumb, then I might flip things. I might throw tables. I might spill my drink again on purpose all over everything and just quit and just quit. Hard to say. Hard to say. Oh, hard to say. What was that? Page 330? Thank you. Startled, Shuimeng reached out to feel Mo-Run's forehead. You don't have a fever. What are you babbling about? I had a dream once that someone stabbed me in the chest with a sword, just a few inches to the side, and both my heart and spiritual core would have been gone. Shuimeng stared at him. Enough already, he said, waving a hand. You're annoying, but you're still my cousin. If anyone wants to dig out your spiritual core, I'll be the first to give them a piece of my mind. It's been the past, like, page and a half, you have felt physically Meat Bun setting one domino in front of another, and I dislike her quite a lot. Mo-Run grinned. His pitch-dark eyes were depthless, light and shadow flickering within, holding a million thoughts and emotions. Why was he reminding Shuimeng of those bygone events at Tianyin Pavilion? Perhaps Shuimeng hadn't thought much of them, but those scenes had cast dark shadows in Mo-Run's mind. Oh God, the defendant had been a young woman in her 20s. We're gonna get the download about this! A large crowd had assembled in Tianyin Pavilion's public square. Men and women, young and old, cultivators and commoners alike. They whispered and craned their necks to look up at the woman upon the execution platform, held down with immortal binding ropes, soul-fixing locks, and demon-subduing shackles. Isn't that Madame Lin? Didn't she just marry into a rich family? What crime did she commit to catch Tianyin Pavilion's attention? You guys don't know? She's the one who set fire to the Zhao Manor. She killed her own husband. Oh. This revelation drew gasps from the crowd. Why'd she do it? Someone piped up. I heard her husband was always good to her. As the crowd muttered and murmured, the master of Tianyin Pavilion emerged to greet the spectators with a scroll held aloft. Slowly, the scroll unfurled, and the charges against the Lin woman were read out. The accusations were so numerous, it took an hour to list them all. In summary, the accused wasn't actually the maiden from a distinguished clan who had betrothed to the Zhao family. She was, in fact, a puppet wearing a human skin mask who had taken the true daughter's place with the objective of getting close to Zhao Gongzhe in order to murder him for revenge. As for the betrothed maiden, she had long met a sorry end by this Miss Lin's blade. We're supposed to be thinking about how this could possibly tie in to the main plot and everything happening. That's what we're supposed to be thinking about. I'm not, though. I'm thinking very ungracious things about this fucking author. Quite the tale of deception, the pavilion master remarked coolly when finished. None can escape the will of heaven. Miss Lynn, it's about time you took off that mask and showed everyone your true face. Before the watching crowd, hands tore the human skin mask off and tossed it to the ground like the shed skin of a snake. A deathly pale and alluringly pretty face was revealed beneath the woman's wild tangles of hair. A disciple of Tianyin Pavilion grabbed her chin, forcing it up so the crowd could see. Jeers broke out below. "Poisonous bitch!" someone yelled. "You killed an innocent girl and destroyed the family that took you in, all for your personal grievances? Beat her to death. Dig out her eyes. She deserves death by 1,000 cuts. Peel her skin off inch by inch." The crowd was made up of individuals, but they behaved as though they shared a single savage mind. Groupthink is, I believe, the term for that. It may have a more specific definition, but I believe that's the term we're looking for. They were a colossal beast weighed down by its own size, drooling and snarling. This unsightly creature seemed to think it was an auspicious beast, that its very existence reflected the will of the heavens and earth, its presence in the mortal realm righteous in and of itself. The shrill cries from the onlookers became a roar that pierced the teenaged Mo-Run's ears. The fury of these people astonished him, as though the long-dead woman and the young Zhao Gongzhe were not complete strangers, but their family or friends, their own son, their own lover. They cried out as if they wanted more than anything to get justice for those dear to them, to personally tear this criminal limb from limb. Ooh, when I tell you, I could write an essay right now about unhealthy schadenfreude and the way we gnash our teeth to rip down people as if we'd, like, shot their children or something. Yeah. Mo-Run's eyes were wide with confusion. Shouldn't Tianyin Pavilion be the ones to decide the punishment, he asked. Don't be scared, Renner, Shui Jingyong said soothingly. Yes, Tianyin Pavilion will decide. Everyone is just angry, that's all. All they can do is talk. Tianyin Pavilion will use its holy implements to decide the punishment. Everything will be fair and impartial, don't you worry. Well, about that. There's an idea. Maddie said Shui Jingyong needs to get control of this crowd. I would love to see it. But this business didn't unfold, as Shui Jingyong said. The shouts from the crowd grew more absurd, more extreme. This stupid bitch killed without a shred of remorse. You can't allow her an easy death. Pavilion Master Mu, you are the cultivation realm's arbiters of justice. You must try her properly. She needs to suffer. Make sure she gets her just desserts. Give her the punishment she deserves. First, tear open her mouth and pull out her teeth one by one, then cut her tongue into 100 pieces. Dear God, it's like we're on Twitter. Cover her in mud. After it dries, rip it off so her skin comes off too. Pour chili pepper water on her and make her suffer. Let her die. A brothel madam had also come to watch the commotion. She spit out her melon seed shells and smiled sweetly. Tear her clothes off. Doesn't someone like her deserve to be stripped? Stick some snakes and eels in... Oh! You know, I'm trying to decide. I've read out a lot of, like, heinous words, specific words on this, and I have yet to get in any trouble for it. And in fact, I may have even said this word before. So I'll go ahead and say it. Stick some snakes and eels in her cunt and get 100 men to take their turns with her. Now that's a punishment that fits the crime. Was this fury really born from their own righteousness? Back then, Mo-Run had trembled as he sat next to Shui-Meng, stricken and overwhelmed. Eventually, even Shui Jingyong noticed his unease. Just as he was about to bring them away from the stands, a loud boom echoed from the platform. A hand in the crowd had thrown an exploding talisman onto the platform, right at the woman's feet. This was against the rules, but whether because Tianyuan Pavilion wasn't quick enough to intervene, or because they didn't wish to, the talisman detonated. Instantly, the woman's legs were a gory mess. "Uncle!" The hand that gripped Shui Jingyong's sleeve was shivering uncontrollably. Loud whoops came from the audience, and the assembled heroes clapped in delight. "Nice! She had it coming! Let's see another one!" "Who threw that? Stop it!" The Tianyuan Pavilion disciples shouted from the platform. But that was all. They did nothing else to control the crowd. It didn't take long for people to start tossing all sorts of things onto the platform. Vegetables, rocks, eggs, knives. The disciples cast a barrier in front of themselves and watched from the sidelines. As long as no one killed the defendant outright, they wouldn't step in. Tianyuan Pavilion had always been high-minded and aloof. They wouldn't obstruct a group of concerned citizens upholding justice. I've always been a supporter of prisoners' rights, and that has only increased as time has gone on, and you learn things about prisons and just the general assessment that everyone is a human, even the humans who do despicable things. But also, the huge point that I've been just ruminating on lately is that if prisoners aren't extended humanity, then all that does is give the system permission to treat other people without humanity. That's all it does. That's all it serves. It shouldn't be happening in the first place because everybody is a human being. But then you just give them an inch and they take a mile. You can't point to any one group and be like, they don't deserve to be treated as a human, so therefore they shouldn't be, because that's not going to be applied in a way that will make you happy. I have strong feelings happening right now. Recalling this episode, Mo-Run's heart sank like a stone. He didn't want to remember anymore. He closed his eyes, then opened them again. "You'll see, Shui-Meng. If Nangongsa refuses to say he's Shizun's disciple, he'll have no one in the entire cultivation realm to protect him. And if Tianyuan Pavilion really does interrogate him after we leave Mount Jiao, the outcome will be the same as we saw all those years ago." "But at the trial back then," Shui-Meng said, "everyone was mad because that woman killed someone, so whoever holds the knife can turn it on whomever they want, isn't that right?" Mo-Run was more and more despondent. He had thought to say more, but found he couldn't go on. How many people in this world use the pretense... Here it is. How many people in this world used the pretense of upholding justice to do evil? Thank you. Thank you. They took all the dissatisfaction in their day-to-day lives, all the indignation, fury, and resentment in their chests, and poured it out this way. And we're not even talking about the potential foreshadowing in another domino that has been set up, right? Like what? This isn't going to become more relevant later on? When certain things are exposed in some way? I'm so deeply anxious. and this fucking fly won't leave me alone. ah. They finished their tea and chatted a while longer. The sky grew dark, and Shuimeng took his leave. Mo-Run walked to the window and retrieved the Zhenlong chess piece from his sleeve. He glanced at it one last time. With a flash of spiritual energy at his fingertips, he pinched it to dust. The wind picked up and the leaves shuddered in the trees. The man at the window, too, shuddered. Slowly he raised his hands and hid his face behind them. He stood in a daze for a long, long time, elbows propped on the window frame. Eventually he turned away and walked into the dimmest corner of the room, letting the darkness swallow him. Mo-Run sat in his lightless room for hours, losing himself in his thoughts, until he felt shattered, broken beyond repair. He didn't know what he ought to do. There were things he thought he should speak of, but he didn't know if doing so would be a help or create yet more chaos. Either way, once he spoke, there would be no going back. What to do? He didn't know. The more he thought, the more frustrated he grew, and the greater his confusion. Anxiety and bitter pain swept through him. He thought of the mysterious villain holding the knife behind him. He thought of the cultivation realm's worshipful reverence and blind faith in Tianyin Pavilion. He thought of that woman on trial, her legs blown to bloody rags. He paced in his room like a caged beast, like a lunatic. The shadows of Teishanjun and Mozongshe flitted across his gallant features, one swallowing the other in an infinite cycle. When he could take it no longer, his footsteps halted. He pushed the door open and left the room. That's a scene break. Night had fallen. Chu Wanning was preparing to sleep when he heard a rap at his door. When he opened it to see Mo-Run standing outside, he was slightly taken aback. "What are you doing here?" Mo-Run felt he was on the brink of madness. This calamity that might descend at any moment was like a sword hanging over his head. It was about to drive him crazy. He had screwed up all his courage, intending to confess the entire absurd truth of his existence. But the instant he saw Chu Wanning's face, his gathered courage splintered into a million pieces, turning to dust, into fragile selfishness. I think it was Maddie who called that in this chapter Mo-Run would try to tell him and then either be interrupted or not have the courage or just stop himself. Maddie called this, I believe. Shizun, Mo-Run's voice was pinched. I can't sleep. Can I come in and sit with you a while? Chu Wanning stepped aside to let him in. Mo-Run closed the door behind him. He emanated an unease so strong Chu Wanning could tell his heart was in turmoil before he said a word. Did something happen? Mo-Run didn't respond. He only stared at Chu Wanning. Then he strode to the window and pulled it firmly shut, cutting the room off from the outside world. Mo-Run began, his voice terribly hoarse. Anguish surged in his chest, seeming to rouse his desperate impulse to confess. There's something I need to tell you. Is it about Shu Shuanglin? Mo-Run shook his head, but after a moment's hesitation he nodded, only to shake his head again. The candlelight flickered in his eyes like a viper's scarlet tongue, weaving and swaying. His expression was so distraught, and the light in his eyes so scattered, that Chu Wanning couldn't bear to merely look. He reached up to touch Mo-Run's face. The moment Chu Wanning's fingertips brushed his cheek, Mo-Run's eyes snapped shut as though viciously stung. His lashes quivered and the jut of his throat rolled. Turning away, he said thickly, "I'm sorry." Chuan-Ning didn't know what to say. "Can we put out the light?" He hesitated. "If I see your face, I can't say it." Chuan-Ning had no idea what had happened. He'd never seen Mo run like this. Goosebumps rose on his arms. It was a devastating sight, as if some great object had fallen from the sky and crushed everything beneath it. He stilled for a moment, then nodded. Mo Run went to the candle, gazing into the flame. Then he reached over and snuffed out that last bit of light. The room was plunged into darkness, but the afterimage of that flame danced across his vision. Its vivid orange faded into flashing colors, its outline bleeding from crisp to blurry. He didn't move, his back to the room. Chuan-Ning didn't rush him. He waited quietly for Mo Run to speak. It's the end of the chapter. Yeah, putting the light out when you're feeling so intensely vulnerable that seeing the person isn't possible. All right. We're on page 339 for chapter 208, which is called Shizun, Are You Sure You Want Me to Hide Under the Bed? But see, just like how she can allude to something deathly serious happening and then having it either avoided or made into something more lighthearted, the converse is also true. I would not put it past her in the slightest to name a chapter, Shizun, Are You Sure You Want Me to Hide Under the Bed? Making you think, oh, someone's gonna walk in, but we have to hide because we can't know that we like really want to bang each other and that I've been fucking your thighs for a little while now, so like I have to hide under the bed, to give that vibe and then have this be the chapter, because I don't trust her at all. Not in the slightest. Why would I be such a fool? Several times, Mo Run's lips parted, only for him to close them in silence. His temples throbbed and ached as his pulse rampaged through his veins, but his blood seemed to carry no heat. It was cold, cold as ice. As he wrestled with his thoughts, even his fingertips seemed to freeze over. Shizun. A long pause. Actually, He only managed 3 words before falling apart again. Did he really have to confess it? All those deeds belonged to the past life. He had already killed himself at Wushan Palace. He had died a long time ago. All that remained from that past life were his memories. Did he have to confess it? If he spoke, his conscience would be clear, but was it really the correct choice? Things were so good right now. Shui-Meng smiled at him. Chuan-Ning was his. His uncle and aunt were healthy and well, and Shimei was alive. Nothing could be more important than this. Even if he spent the rest of his life consumed by guilt, living like a fugitive, he couldn't bear to destroy everything before his eyes. But still he felt he should confess. He should confess for a variety of reasons, not just plot related. There is I have a lot of issues with the AA program, the Anonymous program, Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous. I got a lot of issues with them, but there are indeed several steps that are deeply important to healing from something like addiction. And one of them is to actually apologize and make amends and own up to the things you have done kind of no matter what that situation is. Even if it's all happy, even if everything's really good, it's still something that needs to be done for a variety of reasons. And that one I definitely agree with. So yes, he should. And it's always going to feel like he'll just be ruining something great. It's always going to feel like that. There is no time, and then if it doesn't feel like that, if everything's shit at the moment, then it's just going to be, well, I don't want to add to everyone's pain. Everything's shit right now. Why would I tell them right now? So then that creates no opening that you ever have. So the only choice you have is when things are better. But it's so deeply important. And the fact that we get to see him debate it like this, standing in front of the person, I don't like her. He was certain the villain behind the scenes had also been reborn. He was the only one who could tell the world the truth and prepare them. This was an opportunity for him to atone for his crimes. Perhaps the heavens had allowed him to keep his memories after death for just this moment, so he might step forward and prevent this crisis from unfolding, even if he paid with his life. Moran closed his eyes. He was shaking from head to toe, his lashes damp. He didn't fear dying. After all, he had died once already. But there were things in this world more terrifying than death, and he'd had his fill of them in the past life. He had chosen suicide to escape those things. In the present lifetime, especially after Chu Waning's death, he had been running as fast as he could, trying to throw that invisible monster off his trail. Yet it had chased him into a corner, its talons an inch from his throat. In the end, this was his destiny, eternal loneliness and revilement. He couldn't escape. Moran was crying, tears rolling silently down his face and dripping onto the floor. Trying desperately to suppress the quaver in his voice, he choked out, "I'm sorry. I don't know where to begin. I am." A pair of strong arms encircled him. Moran's eyes flew open. Chu Waning had stepped over and embraced him from behind. "If you don't want to say it, then don't." Chu Waning's voice floated over his shoulder. "Everyone has their secrets. Everyone makes mistakes." Moran froze. Chu Waning already understood. But of course, how could he fail to catch on? He had seen Moran admit to so many mistakes, both phony and sincere, evasive and earnest. He didn't know what wrong Moran had committed, but he was certain he meant to come clean about something from his past, something he didn't wish to speak of. "Shizun, if it's bothering you, and you want to tell me about it, go ahead. I'm listening," said Chu Waning. "But if it's too painful to say, you don't have to tell me, and I won't ask further." He paused. "I know you won't do anything like it ever again." Moran felt like a dagger was twisting in his chest. He shook his head minutely. "No, it's not as simple as that. It's not nearly so simple. It's not like picking a flower I wasn't supposed to. I killed. I covered the land in blood and bones. I ruined most of the cultivation realm. I ruined you." He broke down again. Still in his head, "I ruined you, Chu Waning. You comfort your executioner. You comfort the man who stabbed a knife into your heart. Why did you use your dying breaths to tell me to spare myself? Why didn't you just kill me at the very beginning?" He was trembling, shaking uncontrollably. Chu Wanning felt a warm droplet on the back of his hand and flinched. "Mo-run," he murmured. "I want to tell you." "Go ahead, then." Mo-run's thoughts were a mess. Shaking his head, he said haltingly, I don't know how to say it." Up till now, he had managed to speak clearly, but sobs finally began to choke his words. I really don't know where to begin." "Then don't say it." Chu Wanning pulled Mo-run around to face him. In the darkness, he reached up to touch his cheek. Mo-run flinched away, but Chu Wanning was insistent. He cupped his face in his hands. It was wet, drenched with tears. "Don't say it," Chu Wanning repeated. As Chu Wanning leaned in to kiss him, the first time he'd ever taken such initiative, the only warning Mo-run had was the faint scent of Hai-tung growing stronger. Chu Wanning pressed his mouth against the agonized twist of Mo-run's, moving clumsily to deepen the kiss. Bit by bit, he guided Mo-run's mouth open, tongue slipping in to slide against Mo-run's. Despite the chaos, the fear, the madness, Mo-run found himself returning the kiss, though he couldn't say why. Perhaps love was the harbor that gave him shelter from his pain, or perhaps humans were not so different from beasts in the end. Sex could force just about anything to the back of one's mind. In abandoning oneself to desire, pleasure became the only reality. It was mercy to the helpless, a moment of respite for the desperate. Neither said any more. As their kisses grew more passionate, Chu Wanning felt Mo-run's arousal through their clothes, hard against him. He hesitated for a moment, then reached down. Mo-run grabbed his hand, lacing their fingers together. "This is enough." He held Chu Wanning close. Here was the only person who could soothe his pain, who could cleanse his soul. "You don't need to do anything more. This is enough." Chu Wanning reached up to caress Mo-run's face. His heart ached. "Why are you such a fool?" Mo-run took his other hand, all their fingers now tightly linked. He pressed his forehead to Chu Wanning's. "If only I'd always been such a fool." Chu Wanning saw persuasion was futile. He didn't know any more sentimental words. He clumsily nuzzled Mo-run's cheeks and the tip of his nose, and then gently captured his lips once more. Even as the tips of Chu Wanning's ears burned, he strove to maintain his composure. He'd moved first to kiss and hold Mo-run, doing all these things he wasn't at all accustomed to doing. "Shizun." Mo-run tried to squirm away, his breathing ragged from their kisses. "Enough, don't do this." "You're always the one taking the lead." Chu Wanning tugged a hand out of Mo-run's grip and looped it around his neck. "Let me do it this time." "Shizun." Chu Wanning looked into Mo-run's puppy eyes, warm and shining, and reached up to pat him on the back of the head. "Be good," he said, voice steeped in tenderness. In the darkness, they kissed against the wall, the movements of their lips and hands going from gentle to urgent, to hungry to insatiable, overflowing with desire and impatience. "Shizun." "Wanning." Mo-run chanted his name, tenderly, ardently, madly, ruefully. For him, the tiniest scrap of love from Chu Wanning was the world's most potent aphrodisiac. At last he stopped thinking. He pinned Chu Wanning to the wall, kissing him fiercely, dragging his hands over his body. They panted for breath, hearts pounding. Mo-run was almost mad with desire, the corners of his eyes scarlet. "The candle," Chu Wanning gasped as they broke apart, brows knitting slightly. "It's been put out, hasn't it?" Mo-run trailed kisses along his earlobes, his neck. He heard Chu Wan-ning say into his ear, voice heavy with suppressed moans, "No, light it." Mo-run froze. "I want to see you," said Chu Wan-ning. I think I saw it earlier, but it was in a different context. Are we not holding hands? We should be holding hands. Excuse me. I'm still waiting for the knock at the door because of the title of the chapter, but until then, bitches are linked, okay? The candle flared to life, chasing away the darkness. Chu Wan-ning's phoenix eyes were bright and clear, resolute yet misted with desire. His features yet carried a hint of their usual frost, but his ears were a vivid scarlet. "I want to see you," he repeated. Mo-run's heart ached so sharply he felt he might die. Well, at least I'm not alone. How could his filthy, ailing, once coldly unfeeling heart survive beneath this gaze? As he folded Chu Wan-ning into his arms and kissed him, Mo-run took Chu Wan-ning's hand and pressed it to his own throbbing chest. "Remember this place," he said. Chu Wan-ning blinked at him, uncomprehending. "If there comes a day when my sins can no longer be pardoned," Mo-run mumbled, brushing his nose against Chu Wan-ning's, "then kill me right here." A shudder ran through Chu Wan-ning. He stared at Mo-run in disbelief. "What are you saying?" Mo-run's face broke into a smile, one that held both Mo Zhongsha's gallant sincerity and Te Shanjun's wicked madness. "My spiritual core was formed because of you, and my heart is yours too. If a day comes when I must die, they should both belong to you. Only then can I..." He stopped. Never had he seen such shock and fear in Chu Wan-ning's eyes. It dragged him to a halt. He lowered his lashes and offered Chu Wan-ning a wry smile. "Just kidding. I'm only saying all this because I want to tell you." Mo-run drew Chu Wan-ning more tightly into his arms. In his head, "I don't know how many more chances like this we'll have." Wan-ning, again, in his head, "I love you. I want you. I can't be without you." He so badly wanted to tell him all this, but just like the events of his past life, he couldn't say any of it aloud. Chu Wan-ning was caught between confusion and astonishment. He didn't know how grave a mistake had to be for someone to say something like this. But as Mo-run kissed him, his consciousness frayed. Mo-run's kisses weren't entirely to blame. Chu Wan-ning didn't lack for self-control. He was also unwilling to follow this train of thought to its end. Desperation colored their passion, like roiling oil tossed into flames. Their entanglement grew wilder as their restraint slipped away. Before they reached the bed, most of their clothes had been shed. Mo-run pinned Chu Wan-ning down on the mattress, no longer so shy and cautious as he had been the first time, that lustful male craving a simple and brutish need. Pulling open Chu Wan-ning's underclothes, Mo-run bent to kiss the hardened tip of him and take him into his mouth, glancing up as he did to drink in Chu Wan-ning's slack gaze in the candlelight, his head thrown back as he gasped, How many more times could they be together like this? 1, 2. In the morning, they would set off for Mount Jiao, where they might immediately run into the villain orchestrating everything. If that person could really use the Zhenlong chess formation, only Mo Run would be able to defuse the situation. The truth would inevitably come to light. But as they lost themselves in each other, he tried to convince both his Shizun and his despairing self. They would have many, many more chances like this. They would always be together. Just as love and desire entwined endlessly from the dark of the night to the brilliance of day, he wanted to have Chu Wanning countless times, until they fell asleep with limbs tangled, until the blush of dawn painted the horizon. Then he would awaken in his warm embrace and again take him between the sheets, surrendering themselves to indulgence beneath the bright sun, drowning in filth, love, and want. Mo Run pressed his own heavy length to Chu Wanning's, stroking them off together, chasing release. Chu Wanning's phoenix eyes were overflowing with hazy desire. His lips were lightly parted, soft sighs escaping to the rhythm of Mo Run's hands, his gaze going scattered and blurred. Drowning in intoxication, they suddenly heard a knock at the door. Here it is. Chu Wanning started, color draining from his face as Mo Run clapped a hand over his mouth to silence him. It was quiet in the room, but Mo Run's other hand didn't slacken its frenetic pace, driving himself and the man in his arms to the brink. You don't... Chu Wanning tried to shake his head, but Mo Run's grip was unrelenting, pinning him in place. He only had use of his phoenix eyes, caught between rapture and suffering, protestation and despair. Shizun, are you there? Chu Wanning glared at Mo Run, fury kindling in his gaze. He rapped his knuckles lightly against the headboard. Mo Run swallowed, the jet of his throat bobbing, an alluring sight. I know, it's Shui Meng, he rasped. Shizun? A minute later, after getting no response, Shui Meng mumbled, Weird, the candle is lit. Shizun! But how would Mo Run heed him? He was still on top of Chu Wanning, lost in the throes of lust. Even with the candle, the room was dark enough that he had mistaken the indignation in Chu Wanning's eyes for cresting desire. Shizun! The disciple at the door had no intention of leaving, and the disciple in his bed had no plans to stop. Chu Wanning was left with little choice but to clamp his teeth down on Mo Run's fingers. At the jolt of pain, Mo Run released him, a wisp of hurt surfacing in his eyes. That was really hard. Mo Run's voice was low and heated. Serves you right. Chu Wanning threw him a glare, then took a deep breath and called out to Shui Meng at the door. I'm already in bed. Is something the matter? No, everything's fine, said Shui Meng. Something's bothering me. I can't sleep, so I wanted to talk to Shizun. Shui Meng trailed off. Chu Wanning could practically see the little phoenix standing outside, his neck drooping piteously. Was there something in the air? How was it that 2 of his disciples were so beset with worries tonight? Concerned, Chu Wanning patted Mo Run on the shoulder. Get up and put on your clothes, he whispered. Mo Run's eyes widened, producing exactly the look of a dejected puppy. You're going to let him in? It sounds like something's really wrong. Then what about me? Chu Wanning paused. Weathering his embarrassment, he said, Get dressed and hide under the bed. What do you want? What do you want from me in this moment? Truly, well and truly, what do you want? You want me to go insane? That happened several pages ago. I've looped so far beyond the bounds of sanity that I've looped back around to sanity again, except not really, because this is happening in front of you right now. We are after 4. It is 4:15. I'm going to take an exceptionally short break right now to, I don't know, stare at a wall, something, before we come back for, I almost said chapter 349, page 349, chapter 209, called Shizun, Isn't This Exciting? Be right back. Gonna go curse a certain author's existence. enjoy the break room on the train while I do that. Hello again. We have returned. Am I in the right spot? No, I am. Okay. Hello. Hi. So, there were, I think, just two things that I wanted to say before we finish this volume. First of all, very quick video check. How does this stream look any different to you? Does it look better than usual in terms of resolution, clarity? Does it look better, or does it just look the same? Because I'm experimenting with a higher bit rate, but if it doesn't look any better, and if there's no point, then I need to be looking into some other way to see if we can bump up, you know, the visual quality of the stream. About the same, just a bit. So then, okay, it looks a little bit better to some, kind of look fine to others. Now that you mention it, thank you, Shizun. So yeah, so then I'll look into seeing how much I can boost that without, you know, breaking the stream, right? So bitrate up. And then very quickly, you may or may not have noticed that I've started reading a little bit differently. I'm kind of taking my time trying to get some actual, you know, dramaticness, some audiobookness a little bit into the actual reading. I've been experimenting with that now that I'm a bit more comfortable after years of doing that. But I don't know how you guys prefer or enjoy things, so this is just a quick litmus test. Do we prefer the taking the time to actually lend some drama to the moment, or is it like, girl, you're just reacting to this, you can just read it, like, it's fine? Voices and drama. This feels like a silly question because it kind of seems like the answer would be no, please give us the drama. But yeah, okay. Feedback received. Thank you so much. It's one of those things. I'm a theater kid, man. When I'm comfy, I'm always gonna kind of lean for a bit of drama, but I didn't want to overdo it. But then, you know, I wanted to give like a little bit, so I just need to ask these things sometimes because I'm not the one watching. So we're on page 349 for chapter 209 called Shizun. Isn't this exciting? Being under your bed with a heart on. This is almost certainly going to end with Shuemeng figuring it out, right? That's the end of this volume, is Shuemeng realizing that his Shizun and one of his Shizun's disciples are banging it out. That's going to be how this ends. We don't have much time left in this volume. Morun sputtered. He had to hand it to Shuemeng. These latest antics had chased every gloomy thought of the past life oh no, there's a typo. Every gloomy thought of the past life from Morun's mind, leaving nothing but fury and lust. He couldn't fathom why Shuemeng had to talk to Chu Wanning at this hour. Shit, surely Shuemeng didn't like men. The very thought was enough to nauseate Morun, but with another moment's thought it seemed unlikely. Morun shook his head, pushed himself upright, and leaned down to glance at the space below the bed. No way, he said. You don't be mad. I'm not being difficult, said Morun. There isn't enough space. I won't fit. And according to Shizun's lost peach, we know why. Chu Wanning stared at him. There's no closet in here, and I can't climb through a window that small. There's nowhere for me to go. Tell him to leave. Chu Wanning thought it over and was forced to concede. Can we talk tomorrow? He called. I'm about to go to sleep. But I'm really... Shuemeng's voice was tearful, the words somewhat strangled. I won't take a lot of time, okay? Shizun, I'm really confused. There are just a few things I want to ask you about. Oh no, this poor man. All of them. The poor men. We are nothing but poor men in this moment. Chu Wanning knit his brows in silence. Otherwise, I won't be able to sleep. His pathetic whining made Mo-Run's heart stir uncomfortably. He, too, wondered what Shui-Meng was so keen to get off his chest tonight. He sat up, looked around, and had a sudden idea. Leaning over, he whispered into Chu Wanning's ear. Chu Wanning's expression darkened. "Don't be ridiculous." "Then tell him to leave." Chu Wanning opened his mouth, then stopped. He could hear soft rustling from outside the door as Shui-Meng kicked at the leaves on the ground. No! He's literally kicking at the leaves on the ground. No! This poor... Oh, Lord. It was rare for Shui-Meng to be so clingy, if he really sent him away in this state. Chu Wanning cursed under his breath and shoved Mo-Run off. "Then you'd better behave. And don't ever think this will happen a second time." Pausing, he groaned. "Wait, don't forget all the clothes on the floor. Hide everything, quick." Shui-Meng had waited outside for some time in silence. Despite his sinking heart, he ventured one more time. "Shizun?" After a moment, he got his reply. "I heard you. Come in." Finally, receiving his go-ahead, Shui-Meng pushed the door open. As soon as he entered, he frowned slightly. A faint scent hung in the room, one he didn't know how to describe. Fleeting, but somehow familiar. Chu Wanning was indeed already in bed, the thick curtain let down around him. As he heard Shui-Meng come in, he drew the curtain aside ever so slightly, revealing features soft with drowsiness. His eyes were heavy-lidded, as though he had just woken and was still quite tired, with a faint redness at the corners. He gave Shui-Meng a long look, his expression shrouded in the curtain's shadow, nebulous and hazy in the dim light of the candle. Abashed, Shui-Meng muttered, "Shizun, I'm sorry, I've disturbed your rest." "It's fine. Sit," said Chu Wanning. "I'll stay where I am." Of course, Shui-Meng wasn't about to tell him to get up after he'd already lain down. "Uh-huh. Shizun, just listen to me from where you are," he hastily replied. Chu Wanning waited for him to speak. Shui-Meng sat in confused silence at the table. After returning to his room and giving the matter some thought, he had realized why the pendant around Mo-Run's neck looked so familiar. Back when they were traveling to Rufeng's sect for the wedding, Mo-Run had bought one just like it for Chu Wanning. Shui-Meng even remembered grabbing it for a closer look. He'd thought it very pretty and asked Mo-Run for one as well. At the time, Mo-Run had told him it was the last pendant of its kind. That's right. The more he thought about it, the stranger and more disconcerting it seemed. Like Mo-Run, Shui-Meng had gone back and forth about whether he ought to speak, suffering the torment of indecision. In the end, his feet took him to his Shizun's door. But as he looked into Chu Wanning's eyes, Shui-Meng hesitated again. He didn't know where to start. Eventually, he began in a muffled voice, "Shizun, have you noticed that Mo-Run has been acting really weird?" Both Chu Wanning and Mo-Run's hearts skipped a beat. Chu Wanning's face was impassive as he asked, "How so?" "Recently, I felt like something's off about him. Has Shizun not noticed?" Shui-Meng asked haltingly, struggling to string the words together. Finally, he steeled himself and blurted it out. "It's like he's, pursuing someone." Mo-Run and Chu Wanning both went very still. Naturally, Shui-Meng didn't dare to say, "It's like he's pursuing Shizun," but he snuck a glance at Chu Wanning, his eyes filled with alarm. "What makes you say so?" Chu Wanning asked. "I'm not really sure either, so I wanted to ask Shizun and see if you had the same thought." "You don't need to worry so much about him." "But today, what happened today?" Today I saw something around his neck." Shui-Meng fell silent, looking down at his hands, but Mo-Run started in surprise behind the curtain. One hand groped for the crystal pendant around his neck as his expression shifted. Chu Wanning still had no idea what Shui-Meng had seen. He gazed at Shui-Meng, brow furrowed, waiting for him to finish his thought. But after a long while, Shui-Meng still hadn't made a sound. Instead, Chu Wanning felt the large, warm hand touch his leg. His eyes instantly flashed. Thinking Mo Run was about to do something truly absurd, he tore his gaze away from the oblivious Shui Meng to the corner of the curtain-covered bed. Contrary to his expectations, he saw Mo Run pointing to the pendant around his own neck as he soundlessly mouthed the word at him. Chu Wanning at once put together what had happened. After a moment's deliberation, Chu Wanning asked, "Did you see him wearing a pendant and think it was just like mine?" No, that's not what I meant, Shui Meng exclaimed, flapping his hands in anxiety and embarrassment. I wasn't trying to imply anything about Shizun. I just thought it was weird. It's fine, said Chu Wanning. I gave that pendant back to him. Shizun gave it back to him? Why else do you think he has it? Shui Meng let out a breath of relief, color finally coming back into his pale face. That makes perfect sense, he said with a smile. Back then he told me it was the last pendant. I thought he'd... Chu Wanning narrowed his eyes. That's not what I meant. I just wanted to say... Actually, Shui Meng babbled. Finally, he clapped a hand to his forehead and said plaintively, just pretend I never said anything, Shizun. I'm so bad with words. I don't know how to explain myself. Really, I just thought he was acting weird lately. You know, his brain isn't normal. I was worried he might get some strange ideas and do something to upset Shizun. After this rambling, Shui Meng asked tentatively, Shizun, do you get what I mean? No, said Chu Wanning. No worries then. That's good. That's really good. The longer Shui Meng spoke, the less sense he was making. Grabbing a handful of his own hair in desperation, he groaned listlessly. Heavens, what am I even saying? Chu Wanning had never been a practiced liar. He had no idea how to comfort him. There were any number of things he could have said. Although it might have gone against his conscience, he could have drawn a clear line in the sand between himself and Mo Run with a single casual utterance. After all, Shui Meng was looking for such reassurance. If Chu Wanning had just said, that's not the case, Shui Meng would always choose to believe his Shizun, even if proof otherwise was laid out before him. But this unwavering belief was precisely the reason Chu Wanning couldn't bring himself to say it. He didn't want to speak in absolutes. He watched in helpless silence as Shui Meng scratched his head and sighed, clearly vexed. At last, Shui Meng fell still. He lowered his head to stare blankly at the floorboards before he spoke again. Shizun, you'll always be our Shizun, right? That won't ever change, will it? There was no immediate reply. I'm only asking because I felt bad seeing what happened with Nengong Se. Nothing will change, said Chu Wanning. Bit by bit, the tension bled out of Shui Meng's stiff spine. Slumping in his seat... Okay, I just had a queer intrusive thought. Speaking of, just tension bleeding out of Shui Meng's stiff spine, I wonder if blood has drained out of other stiff things at this point in this room. You know what I mean? You know what I mean. Slumping in his seat, he sniffled a laugh. That's enough for me. Heartache and guilt welled up unbidden in Chu Wanning. Although his features remained as composed as the still waters of a well, he murmured, Shui Meng. Shui Meng waited for him to continue, but in the candlelight, Chu Wanning only gazed at him in silence. What was he supposed to say? Whatever happens in the future, I hope you'll acknowledge me as your Shifu? Impossible. Even on pain of death, he could never utter such sappy, such cruel words. What right did he have to ask Shui Meng to acknowledge him regardless of what might transpire? Everyone would inevitably experience separation and reunion. Everyone would grow and change, just as a young shoot of bamboo would eventually shed its outermost layer, letting it wither and crumble to dirt. Shui Meng had many decades ahead of him. It was rare for any one person to walk beside another till the end of such a long journey. Events and companions came and went, all destined to become a snake's discarded slough, a stalk of bamboo's discarded sheath. Shui Meng waited, but Chu Wanning didn't continue. His concerned eyes grew round as he watched him. Shizun, he mumbled. It's nothing, Chu Wanning said mildly. You seem to have a lot on your mind. I was just going to recommend you ask the Tenlong Elder for 2 bottles of Tapir fragrance dew. Shui Meng blinked. Is there anything else? Asked Chu Wanning. He thought for a bit. Yes. What is it? Shui Meng had been stewing on this for a while. Shizun, Are you really going to take Nangongsa as a disciple? He's not going to become my Dashishang, is he? Chu Wanning eyed him. Is that what you're concerned about? Shui Meng gave his hem a bashful tug. I used to be your first disciple. If he counts, then won't I? Chu Wanning couldn't help it. His lips bowed in a tiny smile. Shui Meng had always sulked and whined with Madame Wang when he was little. After Mo Run came to Xisheng Peak, he grew needier still, always trying to one-up his cousin for the spotlight. Who would have thought that even as a grown man, this habit was still so deeply ingrained that the prospect of accepting Nangongsa made the little peacock's feathers fan in agitation. Shui Meng had been brooding over this question of who would come first all day. It makes no difference, Chu Wanning said. I don't put any of you first or last. No way, I don't want him to be my Dashishang. Even if he pledged to you first, Shizun recognized him last. I don't mind that he's becoming Shizun's disciple, but can't he go at the end of the line? He could be a little Shidi or whatever, Shui Meng said, perfectly earnest. I can call him Nangong Shidi. Whatever you'd like. This brightened Shui Meng's mood considerably. Now he wanted to stay and chat. In the back corner of the bed, Mo Run was increasingly agitated. How did Shui Meng have so much to say? Why couldn't he get the hell out? Out. But Shui Meng didn't budge. There's one more thing I want to ask Shizun. These poor men. Chu Wanning replied evenly. Go ahead. Mo Run stared at him in disbelief. Earlier today, Mo Run said Shizun promised to give him a handkerchief. Oh, that. Chu Wanning paused. I haven't made it yet. Do you want one too? Shui Meng's eyes lit up. Can I have one? I originally meant to make one for each of you, but I've been busy, so I kept putting it off. Shui Meng was overjoyed. Mo Run, on the contrary, was completely stunned. Wasn't that supposed to just be for him? Why did Shui Meng also... And Shimei, too. Even Nangongsa. Mo Run felt a spike of indignation. Unfortunately, Chu Wanning's face was turned toward Shui Meng. He entirely missed the turbulent look in Mo Run's eyes. Shui Meng chattered on, blithely detailing what kind of handkerchief he wanted. Not a trace of his gloomy mood remained, or awareness that he has woken this man up in the middle of the night, as far as he's concerned. Mo Run, at the foot of the bed, grew more and more irked, especially as he watched Chu Wanning's cheerful countenance as he responded to Shui Meng. Even knowing there was nothing between them, dissatisfaction gnawed at his chest. Pollia flowers are difficult to embroider. If you want a pollia pattern... No, I'm sorry. This is not a request, this is a comment on a request. Let me try that again. Pollia flowers are difficult to embroider. If you want a pollia pattern, I'll have to ask Madame Wang. Is it difficult? Shui Meng was taken aback. Forget it, then. Shizun, you could choose something you know. What are you best at? I'm actually not familiar with any flower or animal patterns. Chu Wanning cleared his throat in mild embarrassment. I'm really only good at stitching the Heart Sutra. Shui Meng blinked. At Wubei Temple, when I was young, Huazui taught me, said Chu Wanning. His brows suddenly drew together. Cheeks pale, he pressed his lips closed. Shizun, are you okay? Shui Meng asked, taken aback. There was a slow beat before Chu Wanning replied, I'm fine. Is there anything else? Yeah, one more thing, but I forgot what it was. Let me think a second. Shui Meng dipped his head deep in thought. The instant Shui Meng lowered his gaze, Chu Wanning sucked in a breath. Fury simmering in his eyes, he glared at the man hiding in the corner of the bed. Mo Run had merely been idly feeling up Chu Wanning in the hope that he would send Shui Meng packing a little sooner. But the red-rimmed glare Chu Wanning shot at him in answer, added to the fact that Chu Wanning was quite powerless to mount any meaningful resistance at the moment, fanned the embers in Mo Run's heart into a fire. His instincts were beastly from the start, and in certain respects, he was as savage as could be. Only his overwhelming love and guilt toward Chu Wanning shackled his primal appetites. Until this point, he hadn't done anything outrageous in bed. Now impatience and envy melted those shackles down. His dark eyes gleamed silently and dangerously at Chu Wanning. Seized by a wild impulse, he burrowed beneath the blankets, where Shui-Meng couldn't see, and crawled forward between Chu Wanning's slender, muscular legs. The bedspread blocked out all the light. But the darkness, no. I have never been so mad at a piece of art in my entire fucking life. No. The darkness only sharpened his other senses. He could distinctly feel Chu Wanning's minute tremors. He felt a hand grab his broad shoulder, 5 burning fingers digging into his flesh, pushing him away. This was all Chu Wanning could do to stop him beneath the covers. It only stoked Mo Run's desire to tear him to shreds. Shui-Meng was still talking, but not about anything important. Mo Run listened, half-heartedly, but upon hearing Shui-Meng say, "No matter what Shizun embroiders, I'll like it," Mo Run's irritation flared. His breaths were brushing against the tops of Chu Wanning's thighs. He knew precisely where that soul-stirring desire most ached, but he deliberately left it untouched. He turned his face, lashes fluttering, and trailed kisses along Chu Wanning's inner thighs, gently sucking that soft skin, leaving behind marks that would linger for days. He is going to be in so much homosexual trouble. Ooh. Chu Wanning's trembling grew more acute. At this moment, he was deeply regretting his choice to let Mo Run stay behind. His nails dug into Mo Run's shoulder, but force was futile against this lunatic. "Shizun, are you listening?" Mo Run waited, lips hovering near the delicate curve of Chu Wanning's erection, heated breaths fanning over it. He held himself still, waiting for the most perfect, most shocking, most thrilling moment. We'll show the art now. Look at this dog. Look at this dog. This dog. Look at this dog. He's just... a dog, ladies and gentlemen. Jesus. It arrived soon enough. Shui-Meng asked some irrelevant question. Mo Run didn't care to listen, but Chu Wanning still needed to answer. In the instant Chu Wanning was about to reply, Mo Run slid forward beneath the covers and greedily swallowed his blazing arousal. Chu Wanning's entire body tensed. He swallowed frantically. His fingernails had already broken skin on Mo Run's shoulder. But Mo Run didn't mind a bit. His mind was a rush of exhilaration at Chu Wanning's reaction, at the exhibitionist thrill of what they were doing in the dimness of the bed curtains. He knew Chu Wanning could bear this much. Even if Mo Run were to rip off his underclothes and fuck him right now, Chu Wanning wouldn't so much as whimper. Mo Run cast aside his inhibitions. As if he ever had any? I suppose he had been clawing some inhibitions towards himself, what with restraint and everything for Chu Wanning and wanting to be more respectful. So I guess his inhibitions, such as they were, have now been cast aside. Okay, because I forgot to have a poll earlier as it went in from, will Mo Run confess his Taishanjun heritage, as it turned from that into sexy times, but knowing those would eventually be averted because of the chapter title, I forgot to ask for a show of hands in the moment. So I'm going to go ahead and ask for a show of hands now. Who thinks Chu Wanning is completing under these sheets in this moment? I want to say yes, actually. But at the same time, maybe Mo Run would be like, no, I'm going to scrape my sanity back for a second and not go that far. However, if I had to, I don't know. Actually, I had a train of thought and now I really don't. I don't know. Elsie, Chuaning is surprisingly kinky though. Maddie, like immediately after the door closes. Tease until Shuemong leaves. Mo Run would not do him a disservice. Etc, etc. Roomy while Shuemong is there. Maria, first man to have no reaction to that. Interesting. My face hurts again. I'm smiling too much. I'm having too much fun. She's like, before we get to volume 7, here's just a little bit more of something else as a treat. Where even am I? Though Chu Wanning had 1,000 reasons not to want this, the physical pleasure was undeniable. He was hot and hard in Mo Run's mouth, the round, full head of his cock pressing against the back of Mo Run's throat. It wasn't necessarily a pleasant sensation, but Mo Run was too infatuated to care. He couldn't have been more eager. Even in the grip of such stimulation, Chu Wanning managed to field the rest of Shuemong's questions. Whether in this life or the past one, his sheer strength of will had ever been astonishing. He put on a commendable act of normalcy. His voice was lower than usual, and his words a trace slower. But other than that, his behavior betrayed not a thing. If Mo Run weren't in bed with him, he would have never guessed this man was experiencing such extreme pleasure. Eventually, Shuemong nodded and said, I understand. You should head back. It's getting late, Chu Wanning replied. Don't let your imagination get the better of you. Shuemong got to his feet. Shizun, I'll be going then. Oh, yeah, should I put the light out? Sure. As Chu Wanning spoke the word, Mo Run swallowed his entire length. His lips parted. Though he didn't gasp, he couldn't keep from frowning slightly, lashes quivering, a faint blush coloring his cheekbones. Shizun, do you have a fever? Shuemong asked tentatively. I don't. But your face is a little red. Without thought, Shuemong leaned down and put his hand on Chu Wanning's forehead. Chu Wanning couldn't have foreseen that his unsuspecting disciple would touch his forehead while Mo Run was subjecting him to such a carnal act. Shuemong stood with a concerned gaze before him while Mo Run sucked him off beneath the covers. Thank you for that turn of phrase. His warm mouth enveloping him, bobbing up and down in an unmistakable rhythm. His pleasure was cresting as his humiliation threatened to drown him. It took every fiber of his self-control to repress his panting and moaning. You don't feel hot, Shuemong muttered. Shizun, are you not feeling well? Not feeling well, Mo Run thought. How could he not feel well? Your Shizun is feeling pretty damn great. The fact that you're still standing here is the only thing stopping me from making him feel even better. Leave already. Mo Run's resentment deepened until Shuemong finally realized it was time for him to go. He diligently snuffed the candle, bade Chu Wanning good night, and left the room. The second the door clicked shut, Chu Wanning exploded with rage. Throwing the blankets aside and hauling Mo Run up by his top knot. I see what you did there, Meat Bun. You're not slick. I mean, you are, but you're not slick. He drew back his hand and slapped him, Not lightly, but none too hard either, as he snapped, "You scoundrel." The only response he got was Morun's ardent, ragged breath and his bright gaze blurred with torrid lust. Most men were no better than animals in the heat of desire. Putting them in bed with their beloved was like drugging a beast with an aphrodisiac. Morun was completely unfazed by Chu Waning's slap. "I also see what you did there, meat bun." He grabbed his hand and pinned him to the bed to tear off the last layer of his robes. As skin met skin, both let out a low moan. Morun didn't speak. His eyes gleamed with a feverish want. He was so hard it hurt, clear fluid leaking from the full round head of his cock. He ground himself against Chu Waning's abdomen as if drunk, leaving slick, sticky trails in his wake. Another show of hands. Is it happening? Right now, at the very, pun intended, ass end of this volume, is now when it happens. Or are we just in for thick thighs saving lives? Zareem, imagine Shuimeng still at the door. Don't do that. I honestly, it feels a little absurd, yet at the same time, I would not be surprised if this is when it happens. Oh, Nas, he did say the next time. Wayfarer doesn't think so. Maddie, I don't know. Do we have the proper equipment? I don't know. Once again, it could go either way. She's really good at that. At any given moment, you can never really be totally confident that one thing or another is about to happen. How many pages do we have? Oh, okay. All right. Okay. Maybe, I don't know. All right. He had teased Chu Waning without mercy beneath the covers. Now, the flames that threatened to consume him were equally ruthless. As Chu Waning had summoned his willpower to bite back his moans, so too Morun summoned all his fortitude to stop himself from lifting Chu Waning's legs and burying his aching hardness to the hilt. Muscles straining, Morun kissed Chu Waning with all his might, mindlessly bucking against him. The flames of lust lapped at his heart. All he wanted was to be inside this man. All his most primal urges compelled him to fuck Chu Waning, to claim him completely, to tear him to pieces. They demanded he make Chu Waning take him in, accept him, swallow him, make Chu Waning his own. Get up, baby, get up. He mumbled, "Quick, I can't wait any longer. Put your legs together." Also, now feels like a good time to tell you that a well-placed baby ends me. All right, I'm about to sneeze. Pardon me. Morun's voice was a low rasp as he clung to his last thread of rationality. He pulled Chu Waning to his knees and, just as he had before, pressed his burning length between Chu Waning's thighs. Hands a vice around Chu Waning's waist, he began to move, each snap of his hips quick and brutal. His skin was sheened with sweat, the light in his eyes almost as frenzied as his movements. This incomplete consummation merely stoked the flames of his desire. He was too focused on the sensation of thrusting between Chu Waning's legs to run his mouth with filthy words, too focused on the way his cock brushed against that hidden entrance every time, nudging against it. With each thrust, his hips met Chu Waning's thighs, coarse hair rubbing against the soft skin there, each movement audible in the slap of his balls against the full curve of Chu Waning's ass. The force of it left Chu Waning dazed. He was losing his mind, a feeling not at all helped by Morun reaching down from time to time with the hand that wasn't gripping Chu Waning's waist to curl his fingers around Chu Waning's own straining erection and stroke him off. Morun bit down on Chu Waning's shoulder, nibbling it before murmuring, "Not so loud. The soundproofing isn't good here, and Shuimeng might still be nearby." Now seems also like a good time to keeping quiet, having to keep quiet. Also, Me and a certain subset of the audience are bonding in this moment, is what I'm saying. Chu Wanning let no more sounds escape after that. His eyes were glassy and unfocused as Mo Run brought him to release, as he endured the ferocious drive of Mo Run's hips on all fours. I'm too over the moon. That startlingly thick cock, we all know, moved between his legs. He didn't dare contemplate how it would feel inside him. He shivered. That night, they made love like this thrice. Or more accurately, Chu Wanning came thrice like this. By the end, his awareness was fast slipping away. He remembered clinging to the man on top of him as they kissed with abandon, and how his heart abruptly began to ache. Chu Wanning raised his head to kiss him again. Somewhat clumsy, but Mo Run was at his limit. "Don't tempt me," he panted, disoriented. Chu Wanning froze. Tempt him? Who was tempting him? Vexed, amused, and not a little helpless, Chu Wanning retorted, "Surely I can't just lie still and let you do whatever you want." Mo Run dipped down to kiss the edge of his ear. "It would be great if you let me do whatever I wanted." His tone held a hint of bitterness, betraying the disquiet still lurking in his mood. It was dark in the room, but when Chu Wanning looked up, he saw clearly the sorrow that flitted through Mo Run's eyes. An idea came to him in a flash of inspiration. Before Mo Run could react, he flipped them over to straddle his strong waist. Gripping both of Mo Run's hands, he gazed down at him from above. "Shizun, you," Mo Run muttered, startled. Chu Wanning didn't respond right away. His phoenix eyes shone, but his earlobes were crimson. "I already said, let me take the lead this time. I haven't forgotten." Have we held hands? Are we holding hands? Are we breathing? Are we breathing? Are we holding hands? These are the questions. Okay? Somebody called this. I think a couple of you called this, because he did indeed say this before, that next time he would, right? I don't have a brain right now, so I'm really doing my best to string two words together. All right, we're holding hands. It's good. It's good. Slowly, he straightened up and shifted himself down. Watching him with his scalp completely numb, Mo Run felt his blood surge wildly. "Stop fooling around," he said. You won't be able to make the journey tomorrow." But Chu Wanning acted like he hadn't heard. As always, once stubbornness overtook him, he would forge his own path, never taking the words of others to heart. Mo Run's spine went rigid. On one hand, he longed deeply to see Chu Wanning take the initiative and ride him, to get on top of him and move his hips. But on the other, he truly didn't want Chu Wanning to do so right now. He knew that if he fucked Chu Wanning for real, Mo Run wouldn't be able to stop after just one round, not after he had restrained himself for so long. Besides, during their unending trysts in the past life, when had he ever been able to fuck Chu Wanning merely once? On that frenzied night when he'd used an aphrodisiac on Chu Wanning, he'd tormented that man until dawn, drinking in his helpless moans. Mo Run was entirely wrung out toward the end, yet he refused to stop, refused to pull out, still buried himself in that wet, twitching, we all know this about me, hole. Their legs tangling, their tongues intertwining, he'd pushed himself inside him, murmuring filthy, mortifying words into his ear. "It feels good, doesn't it? Shizun, look how you're still sucking me in. I came so much for you. Aren't you satisfied yet?" He had forced Chu Wanning to look where they were joined, reaching down to stroke the taut lines of Chu Wanning's stomach. "Your belly is filled with my cum," he growled. This is another time where I get to share, just a couple of the neurosis that I have about me. So we already knew like the whole thing about holes, and it's like, I don't like, it's just kind of, I also, oddly enough, and I realize how funny this is, I'm not wild about bodily fluids. of kind of any kind. It's a very fine line, and the line's fairly low. Like, my tolerance, very, very low. I don't have the preference. I simply don't like them. And I'm so deeply aware of how funny this is, especially since I'm saying this out loud on a live stream to people. But we should just know this about me, similar to the whole thing. What should we do? His eyes glinted with bestial lust as such obscenities dropped from his lips. Will Shizun bear a child for this venerable one, He bucked his hips, driving deeper. Cum from his previous climaxes leaked out around his cock. The aphrodisiac was still in effect. Morun watched the man in his arms tremble as he shifted within him, his eyes darkening against his will as a low whine escaped from his throat. Morun could no longer resist. He began to move once more, driving into him, gratifying him. At that point, he didn't want to be the invincible emperor of the cultivation realm. His desire for Chu Wanning had always been potent and all-consuming. He wanted nothing more than to lock Chu Wanning in a room and make love to him with single-minded devotion, day and night, with no regard for anything or anyone. He wanted to take him on all fours, to take him against the wall, to fuck him with his long legs splayed open on the bed, to thrust into him as he bounced on his cock. Nothing was better than seeing Chu Wanning fucked until he babbled nonsense, until he was sobbing and begging for mercy, until his cock twitched uncontrollably and he came. If only he could live the rest of his life sheathed inside Chu Wanning and never pull out, that would be the height of the mortal realm's pleasures. Morun knew what sort of beastly lust lurked at the bottom of his heart like roiling lava. His throat bobbed as he pinned dark eyes on Chu Wanning, beseeching him, warning him. Shizun, don't do this. Then I'll do something else. Chu Wanning's cheeks burned, but his gaze was unyielding. Morun had no time to consider what something else might be before Chu Wanning moved down and dipped his head. His movements were quick, leaving Morun no opportunity to refuse, and leaving him no time to hesitate. He took Morun's, it's all about the adjectives, fearsome erection between his lips. A jolt of electricity seemed to race down Morun's spine as all the muscles in his torso tensed. He instinctively closed his eyes in ecstasy, then reached out and buried his fingers in Chu Wanning's long hair. One fine-boned hand cupped the back of Chu Wanning's head as his sculpted chest heaved. Wanning. Tears leaked from the corners of his eyes. Was it from stimulation or gratitude? He couldn't be sure anymore. In his beloved's mouth, his cock grew harder yet, veins standing out in stark relief. I mean, at that size, yeah. Already imposing in size and heft before, it grew into something entirely too formidable. Chu Wanning couldn't possibly fit the entirety of Morun's length in his mouth, but he mimicked Morun's motions. He licked along the shaft, trembling from head to toe with shame, even as love and desire warmed his chest from within. He strained to take both the massive head and the shaft into his mouth, but the tip was already knocking against his throat by the time his lips made it halfway down. The blazing heat at the back of his mouth, coupled with the faintly musky scent of Morun's arousal, nearly made him retch several times. Relatable, Chu Wanning, thank you. Infinitely rueful. Morun hurried to intervene. That's enough, babe, don't... A muffled groan swallowed the rest of his words. Chu Wanning wasn't about to give up. His obstinacy made no exception for sex. He started to move, sucking and bobbing his head. Morun had never had any issues lasting in bed, especially during his days as Taishanjun. Back then, men and women had plied him with every manner of temptation, but his heart had never been moved. Yet when Chu Wanning leaned down between his legs, kissing him, his tongue lapping against his cock, the world turned to white nothingness in his eyes. Then endless darkness, bursting with raucous color and then fading to a gentle blur. It felt too fucking good. Mo Run threw his head back and panted lowly, his slender, elegant fingers tangling in Chu Waning's hair as hoarse moans escaped his lips. His Waning, his Shizun, Yuhung of the night sky, the Beidou immortal, the loftiest man in the world, the pristine and faultless Chu Waning, was willing to do this with him. Without drugs, without coercion, entirely of his own accord. Mo Run's eyes were wet, his dusky lashes quivering. Gladly, even. Chu Waning's technique was terrible, and he didn't quite know his own strength. Several times he accidentally scraped Mo Run with his teeth, hard enough to hurt, but Mo Run sank into Chu Waning's ministrations with no thought of stopping. As his climax rocked him, hot tears slipped from his eyes. He pulled Chu Waning to his chest, gathering him into his embrace, kissing him again and again. His heart blazed with the agonies of both sorrow and affection. Waning, he murmured into his ear over and over. Waning. Chu Waning glanced at him, phoenix eyes wet with desire, before lowering his lashes in shame. After a long pause, he asked, voice small and hoarse, "Did you like it?" Those gentle words pierced Mo Run's flesh and blood, rousing a bone-deep ache. Mo Run held him tight. "I did," he answered quietly. Chu Waning's ears were scarlet. After these words of affirmation, he fell silent. Mo Run's hand stroked his hair. "Waning," he murmured, voice a whisper. "I love you. It's only ever been you." In his head, then, "No one in the world could be better than you. No one but you will ever stir my heart. Shizun, I love you. I love you." That is it. That is the end of Volume 6. Why did I grab the bookmark? I don't need it. Because that's the end. That's the end of Volume 6. Holy God in heaven. This is the terrifying thought. Aside from the fact that Volume 7 exists, right? This is the terrifying thought. Once again, aside from the fact that I don't think anything's going to be good ever again until the very end of Volume 11. So, this is the terrifying thought. This is what she does with blowjobs and thighs. This is what we get up to with mouths and putting your legs together. What unimaginable, unholy fucking bullshit is she going to get up to when something is inserted into something that isn't a mouth? And more importantly, when are we not going to get their full, for lack of a better term, their full first time? Are we not going to get that until certain shit has hit certain fans? Is she saving that for the moment when, for the moment after, by the time Chu Waning knows everything about Mo Run? Are we holding off that moment until they're truly embracing each other, each knowing exactly everything about the other? Are we doing that thing? Or is there a little bit more time in Volume 7 before we really take, you know, a fall off a steep cliff. All of the rereaders in chat being like, you're not funny. You think you're funny. You're not funny. Well, that's it for Volume 6. I tell you, not how I thought how Volume 6 was going to end. I thought we were going to get a little dovetail and a little, like, something terrible has just happened or something to lead into Volume 7. But no. Just this. Well, we're jumping into Volume 7 immediately on Tuesday. And we'll have the book chat for YouTube members and patrons talking about all of this on Tuesday at 2:15 before the actual stream at 3. I hope you guys have had a lovely week. It's past 5, so I have to go. But I love you guys very, very much. We have definitely bonded during this stream. So if we weren't besties before, we absolutely are now. We know things about each other, is what I'm saying. So I hope you have a great weekend. I will see you on Tuesday at 2:15 or 3 p.m., depending. And we'll start Volume 7. Yay! Please remember to take care of yourself. And I will see you then.